Man, Auburn football has just broken the Notre Dame fan base.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. We're dapping it up on this Wednesday with Montgomery radio legend, the Darrell Dapprich. Did a former Auburn player take a shot at Hugh Freeze? That's coming up, as well as Auburn's latest addition to the 2026 class from a few days ago. We recapped that, but I guess throughout this entire week, Darrell, with news heating up of a potential flip of Notre Dame quarterback commit Deuce Knight to eventually flipping to the Auburn Tigers, you're starting to see more buzz. It was just kind of local. It swelled way past that now with Wilt Fong putting in a crystal ball as well as several others. And just the reaction throughout this swell from the Notre Dame fan base, Auburn football has broken them. I mean, some of the things that they're saying and the rationale behind it, it's tone deaf, it's hilarious, it's condescending, it's the weirdest combination. And it's like, I know Notre Dame's proud of itself, but some of the stuff I've seen said is just ridiculous.
It is. It's amazing to watch the evolution of this too. You know, someone always talks about the different stages of grief. We're seeing this in recruiting. First, there's denial. And there was a ton of denial a couple weeks ago from Notre Dame moderators of message boards and beat writers and supposedly insiders in the know that said, no way. He's solid. Don't worry about this Notre Dame fan base. And then as it started becoming apparent that that he was visiting other schools and he was at Big Cat and he was considering Auburn, it became fear. And it was just a lot of anger directed at Auburn and the coaching staff and the fan base. And it's a little bit surprising to me. And I'm going to tell you why. You know, full disclosure, it's always been a program that I've respected. I just have. Sure. And I'll tell you, because I've got to be upfront about the whole package here. I love college football. Mm-hmm. And Notre Dame has always been a traditional power in college football. The history, the tradition. I've been to the campus. We all love the movie Rudy.
Love it.
It's, I just, there's so much, it just drips with tradition. When I got to go on that campus, it was like holy ground. I loved it. So that's why I'm doubly confused and disappointed at how butthurt they're acting and insecure. They're acting like they're, Indiana and not Notre Dame about this. They're so insecure about it. It's surprising to me. And then the whole comparative stuff and the really nasty things that they're taking personal shots at Hugh Freeze, it's just amazing to me. And I'll let you respond to that, and then I'll tell you why I think it's even more comical and more concerning.
Well, they're just coming out and saying like, oh, well, we could match NIL, but they're cheating and we're just not going to go to that level. And it's like, get over yourself. Like maybe, just maybe, Hugh Freeze did a good job building a relationship and making a pitch and maybe some sort of argument for path to playing time. And I don't know. I have no clue. But for Deuce Knight to consider leaving and pulling his commitment from Notre Dame, like I'm sure he's thought about it and talked about it with his family. Like it's not like Notre Dame really helped themselves over the last week or so, but now they've pivoted and they're taking the moral high ground, or at least they're trying to, and saying, well, Deuce Knight lied. Deuce Knight lied to us, and so we don't want him anyway. It's disgusting. And it's like, get over yourself. It's recruiting. What did you think was like? It's just it's a mind-blowing thing. And Auburn football has broken this Notre Dame fan base. And it's been kind of fun to watch. I'm not going to lie to you.
That is why fans across the country, if you're not a fan of Notre Dame, really have a problem with their sanctimonious, holier-than-thou attitude that they've always had. Going all the way back to the Catholics versus convicts thing against Miami. It is, we are better than you. We are pure. We do nothing wrong. We're sanctimonious. And it is a very arrogant. Again, I get it, the tradition and Newt Rockne and all that. But so here's the facts. I'm going to lay some facts. They've not won a national championship since 1988.
Uh-huh.
Well, and they can thank LSU and the earthquake game for even being in that championship game, to be perfectly honest with you, because if that last second touchdown doesn't happen against Auburn, they're playing West Virginia in the Fiesta Bowl that year. I think that you look at since 2010, they've had one national championship game appearance. Auburn's had two. They act like they're their program's so much better than Auburn.
Well, and they got pummeled in that, by the way.
They got pummeled. And why would Deuce Knight want to even go to lowly Auburn? Well, you've had one. Auburn's had two. Auburn's won a national championship. You haven't since 2010. And then Auburn was a breath away from having another one 3 years later. I get it. They've had two college football playoff appearances in 2018 and 2020, more recent. Auburn's never been, but they got absolutely smoked. I mean, Clemson, took care of. So to act like they are Alabama, in the comparative to Auburn is just disingenuous.
But also just the idea of, okay, well, maybe it was exciting when the recruitment process started for Deuce Knight and he commits to Notre Dame because Notre Dame does have that brand and it carries some weight.
Yes.
There's no question about it. It's a historic program, like you said when you went to their campus. But there's also the reality of a kid can change his mind. Maybe he sat down with his parents and was like, yeah, so you guys are going to be able to come to every game? It's like, well, maybe not all of them, just because of the nature of how far it is away and travel's hard and it takes time and it's expensive. We can't just drive over on a Friday and make up the South Bend where, we're in Mississippi. But we could Auburn, or we could Ole Miss, or we could one of these other programs. Well, Mom and Dad, I've talked a lot to Auburn. I like Coach Freeze. Let's hear what he has to say. And then maybe it just over time, he realizes for the next stage of his life, it makes more sense for him to go somewhere closer to home. Not everything has to be personal. Not everything has to be some dramatic, one way or all the other. Maybe sometimes it's just best for the kid. And I think him coming to Auburn is probably best for him, or he wouldn't be considering making this decision. There wouldn't be all this smoke. And so for Notre Dame fans to make it personal about Deuce Knight, I think is crappy. And then also just to throw shade at the Auburn fan base when we really haven't done anything to you. It's hilarious. It's hilarious. And it's definitely shown their true colors, which I think is, I think it's interesting.
And maybe the kid just wants to play in the best conference in America. I mean, I get it. Notre Dame plays in a very, very elite conference. Oh, no, they don't play in a conference. They're independent. Yeah. That's right. Independent. The other thing is why this has come out of left field. You're right. Auburn and Notre Dame have never played each other. There's no history, smack talk there of schools that, we beat you. There's nothing.
We did whoop them in basketball last year, though.
We did. Yeah. And I get it. I mean, our best baseball players, Irish. Maybe they're a little bit hurt about that, right? I get it.
Maybe so. Sure.
But when you don't play in a conference and you choose not to get in a conference, you really don't have a right to stick your chest out and act better than everybody. You're scared. You won't get in a conference. You had an opportunity to get in the Big Ten, didn't do it. You play an ACC schedule in basketball, I get it. But you don't even play in a competitive football conference. How can you look your nose down at a school that's in the best conference in America? It's delusional, and I hate that because I love the tradition, and I loved going on campus, and I love me some Rudy. Okay, but they're really starting to make me get angry and turn the tide towards them and go, you're not as good or not as relevant as you think you are. It's not 1988. Okay.
Yeah,
I get it. That's the last time. I mean, they've had some playoff appearances, but your coach, by the way, felt like another school in the SEC was a better job than Notre Dame. Woo! So what about that? If it was so great, why didn't you keep your coach with the last name Kelly, who's Irish, in Notre Dame? He wanted greener pastures. So where does he go to greener pastures? South to an SEC school. Sound familiar? It's happened before. Get over it.
Yeah, maybe some self-awareness would do the fan base good. Maybe it would do the fan base good. But yeah, all in all, Auburn football, they've broken Notre Dame over the past week, and it's been fun to watch. It's also fun to see Auburn pick up another commit, Wayne Henry. It's big for a few reasons. Offer list, but also a pipeline is forming in a unique way. That's coming up right here on Locked On Auburn. Daryl, today's show is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. You love Game Time. I love Game Time. My wife and I, Monday night, we went to a concert in Atlanta. We used we looked for those lightning deals when we bought our tickets. It was a prime opportunity to go see an artist that we've wanted to see for some time. We're in the concession stand line. We get our burgers. She got a burger, or she got a hot dog. I got a chicken sandwich, actually. And we're in the condiment line. You know, there's always a condiment station at these events, and we're in line. And this gentleman in front of us is mixing the mayo on top of a sandwich with his finger. And then he just looks at the mayo at the end of his finger. There's no napkins around. And so this guy just licks it off. Just licks it off right in front of everybody to see. What a move. What a claim. But let me tell you what. The deals at Game Time are as delicious as the mayo at the tip of that man's finger.
Did he touch anything after that? Did he touch anything else after that?
Oh, yeah, dude. 100%. I'm sure he had to have. This man was not concerned with cross-contamination.
Oh my gosh.
It was.
That's going to be hard to ever eat mayonnaise again after. And I'm dang sure not going to do it at a condiment station either.
Yeah.
I'm done. Unless it's a packet. If it's a squirt bottle.
It was the squirter.
Yeah, if it's a squirt bottle, Daft's moving on. Not after that story, my friend.
Yeah, but let me just stress it one more time. You could download the Game Time app today, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Also, the deals are as delicious as the mayo at the tip of that gentleman's finger. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Wayne Henry commits to the Auburn Tigers. He is part of the 2026 class. There was not a whole lot of buzz about this guy, Daryl. Why? Because he goes to St. Francis Academy in Baltimore, Maryland, which is becoming a trend. This is now the third commitment in the last, 2 months?
Yep.
From there, he joins Bryce Diaz and Blake Woodby, and now Wayne Henry joins the crew. And of course, those guys were both defensive backs in the 2025 class. Wayne Henry, a defensive back now in the 2026 class. Not a whole lot of buzz. 3-star guy on the two places that have him ranked, 247 and Rivals. But a guy that has a healthy offer list, which is interesting. But the fascinating thing about this is Auburn going to start recruiting Baltimore, Maryland more? I think that's fascinating.
Let me tell you something. Fascinating is the right word. Number one, if DJ Durkin, who obviously has a pipeline, having been at Maryland, wants all three of these kids and thinks that this is a program that could be like a football factory type scenario, then I trust him, and that's good. Yeah. The other thing is Penn State, to their credit, has done a really, really good job recruiting in the Maryland area. They've got some players. And guess who had an offer? He had an offer from Penn State. Yeah. So I even trust that coaching staff when they pluck players out of there. LSU, Florida, a couple other schools that offered. Look, I get it. People are worried about the size. They get caught up with the 3-star thing. But I trust the coaching staff on this. And I think you've got 2 more years of high school football that you have to play yet before you come on a college campus. A lot could happen from now until then, from a rating standpoint, from getting stuff on film.
Yeah.
Look, and you're right, it did come out of nowhere. There was no buzz. We didn't hear anything about this, but there's a pipeline developing. And again, there are some schools that are really good schools that go into that area to pluck talent out of there. And I think DJ Durkin knows that firsthand, recruiting battles with those schools.
Yeah.
I like it. And I think, again, let's just wait and see what this looks like in 2026.
Yeah, his tape is fine, but he's played his sophomore year. He's about to start his junior year of high school.
Right.
The size isn't. I get the concern for the size, but surely, surely Durkin and the staff talked about it. 5'9", 160 on 3 and Rivals. He's listed at 5'9", 170 on 247. So take that for what it's worth. But
you may be some mayonnaise off somebody's finger to get to that 170. All those calories, right? That's the difference. Mayonnaise is fattening.
There it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm with you. I've been thinking about that moment.
I'm just having a hard time. I know we're on to bigger and better things, but You put an image in my mind that's very, very hard to get out of my head right now. It's just stuck with me. It's going to make how I eat a sandwich different from now on. It's just,
Well, it's like
really,
he spreads it out, which I mean, he could have just put the bun on putting the bun on the
spreads
on
it
the
out
middle
naturally.
Of it, that's the point. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And then he's looking at it and he's like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. Oh. And I'm like, please don't. And he did it. And I looked at my wife and I'm like, did you see that?
She's like, no. And
I'm
did
like,
your wife see it?
No, I had to explain it to her.
Women
like,
would react completely different to that.
Yeah. She's like, no, what happened? And I'm like, I'm going to tell you a story about that dude when we get to our seats. And then I told her and she's like, I wish you hadn't told me that. I'm like, well, I'm going to tell everybody. I'm going to tell everybody. So there we go. Wayne Henry. I mean, it elevated Auburn's 2026 class. Which is obviously a cool thing of this, but I think the pipeline thing is fascinating, and I don't want to take anything away from Wayne Henry. I'm sure he's going to be a solid player, but I don't know. He's a top 50 safety. We'll see. Just they must really like him because that's not a position group where like Auburn like has to like reach for right now. I mean, they are loaded as far as like the commits at defensive back right now with the upcoming class and then the 2026 class coming in. There's a lot of guys that they're expecting to land. So they must believe in him, which is encouraging. And at this point, this staff deserves our faith whenever they take a commitment from a guy like this. So I'm all for it. Wayne Henry, welcome to the club.
The pipeline thing is interesting because Auburn's recruiting a very highly touted defensive lineman named Darian Smith from that same school for 2026.
Okay.
And so if you get the pipeline going and you get all those kids there, I'm not saying that Henry was a take to get Smith. That's not the case. But you want to establish a pipeline. And then the other thing, which you and Charlie Five have alluded to, if this 105 scholarship thing goes through, start just cornering the market on schools and getting
just
kids.
Take everyone. That's right.
Exactly. Do it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like any guy, like you got two friends, come on, bring them. Bring them. Yeah,
there's a really great picture of all three of them in front of their arch. It says St. Francis Academy. That's really neat. If you can see it, if you can find it online, of all three kids that committed to Auburn, it's a great picture.
Henry, Woodby, and Diaz.
Yes,
that's cool.
Yeah,
that's
pretty cool.
Love that. Yeah, and I mean they're all defensive guys, which Durkin's going to know. So yeah, Wayne Henry, welcome to the 2026 class. Did a former Auburn player take a shot at Hugh Freeze? I think he did. And he shouldn't have. That's coming up right here on Locked On Auburn. Thank you so much to making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. For your second listen, be sure to check out Locked On SEC with Chris Gordy or Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin, all daily shows throughout the Locked On Podcast Network. Robbie Ashford, I'm reading this story from South Carolina Gamecocks on SI, it's the name of the site. And he's quoting Robbie Ashford, the former Auburn quarterback. This is the quote from Robbie. The only true opportunity I've really gotten from a coach that's told me it's going to be a competition and has been is with Brian Harsin my first year at Auburn. I respect him a lot for that. When I listened to Coach Beamer, the current South Carolina coach, he had a lot of the same things that when Harsin told me it was a competition, that he meant it. I heard those things from Coach Beamer, and I was like, okay, I believe that. Maybe it's just not smoke being blown in my ears like a lot of coaches like to do. So gives praise to Harsin for saying, hey, it's going to be a competition. And it was. It was a competition between TJ Finley, Robby Ashford, and Zach Calzada. Finley won it, got hurt. Robbie took the job and didn't let up. To me, this seems like he's saying, because he doesn't mention Freeze, that last year wasn't a competition, that he gave the job to Peyton Thorne. And that may be true. But to take a shot publicly at a coach who gave you snaps to the detriment of the offense, but they wanted you to have packages and would, Peyton Thorne would complete a pass and there'd be momentum moving in the offense and they would switch the quarterbacks out to give Robbie a few extra carries and some few extra snaps, which I don't think anybody thinks was a good idea. And you're bashing him for that, or just, I think he's taking a shot. Maybe I'm off on this. What do you say, Daryl?
I think that sometimes omission and leaving someone out can be just as much of a shot taken as if you directly said something about him. I'll give you an example. When a kid moves on and transfers to another school, or they get drafted into in the NFL, a lot of times they'll thank coaches. And the glaring omissions and the people they leave out along the way are very telling, unless they just accidentally forget to mention a name. But I think a lot of it is by design. I think we both can sit here and say now, a year later, we're not shocked to hear that Robbie Ashford felt like he didn't get a fair shot. Come on. I mean, we knew that. We heard the buzz. We heard the chatter when Peyton Thorne was named quarterback. He was not happy. He felt like he wasn't given a shot. So here's the deal. My question would be, first of all, to praise Harsin about that tells me that if Zach Calzada wouldn't have got hurt and had the shoulder problem, where would that have pecking order been? I mean, because we felt like going into camp before Zach Calzada got hurt that it was going to be his job to lose and Finley would be the backup.
That's what it seemed like.
Yeah. That's what it seemed like. So Robbie Ashford, I don't know if he was really even considered to be in the mix at that. He can say that Harsin said that, but I don't know. Until Zach Calzada got hurt, I don't know if that was the case. Then he wins the job, and to his credit, he played hard and got after it and gave 100%. Everything he had for Auburn. He did. When TJ Finley got hurt and all that controversy. I get that. But, Hugh Freeze specifically had packages for Robbie Ashford. Designed things to keep Robbie Ashford in the game, engaged, because he didn't want to just cast the kid off. And a lot of times, as you mentioned, it bogged down drives. It slowed down momentum. You get inside the 10, you're making quarterback changes and couldn't get the playoff. It was a disaster sometimes. Well, why did Hugh Freeze do that? To keep the kid happy, in my opinion, to keep him engaged, to reward him for sticking it out. So he didn't have to do that. He did. Now, do I feel like Hugh Freeze truly felt like Robbie's legs gave Auburn the best chance to win games sometimes in certain situations? Yeah. But he also did it when it was a head scratcher at times. Mm-hmm. And I think, sometimes we forget those things. We'll see. We'll see if it's a true competition when the South Carolina quarterback is named.
Sure. It's going to be interesting if he isn't the starter and they don't do the whole package thing. Yeah. One, how does he react to that? Two, there's a chance that if he's not the starter, he played more snaps last year at Auburn than he does this year at South Carolina. And that's going to be interesting.
If Beamer goes with the kid that everyone's talking about is the heir apparent and doesn't put in packages for Robbie or doesn't have the same philosophy that Hugh Freeze did last year, I would think that when he watched him on tape and saw how dynamic he was running the football, he'll have to have packages. I just can't imagine that he doesn't.
And I think Robbie is worthy of having packages because he is so dynamic. I don't think the timing made sense of when they were used a year ago. But they even when they started him for a game, they started him at Ole Miss, I think. Yeah, I think he started the Ole Miss game. And so just to say he wasn't given a shot, I think it's disingenuous, but I could be wrong. I don't know the full story. So
a lot of times what you don't say speaks volumes about something in a certain situation. And in this case, I think the omission of Hugh Freeze and what happened last year. And again, this comes as no surprise to you or I or anyone that covered Auburn because we had heard some of the smoke about how that went down as far as him not feeling he got a fair shot.
Yep. All right. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. What's your favorite camp storyline so far throughout fall camp?
Man, this sounds like I'm beating such a dead horse, but the receivers have me booging so bad. The videos, some of the stuff you've dropped, the pictures, the still shots. What Sam Jackson said today is probably second when he got interviewed by a couple different media outlets about talking about Peyton Thorne and how he really talked him up. And now I get it. They were buddies.
What did he say specifically? So
that he's a completely different player. And now that he has weapons, that it's going to be one of those things, watch out, basically, get ready. Now, I get it. They're friends. They've played together in high school and all that kind of stuff. I think
they're roommates, I think.
So, but I just, he's putting himself out there by saying those kind of things and going out on a limb. But the receivers and what the size, the physicality, the stories of walking by dudes and looking and going, now that's an NFL receiver or that's an SEC
different.
receiver.
Yeah,
it's different. That has got me. That's the biggest storyline right now.
Yeah, I got you. It's
certainly. And I will say this. Go ahead.
No, it's the most intriguing one. What else?
The whole Jarquez Hunter under the radar thing, that's gone because he's a dope walker. A dope walker, nominee, whatever you want to say.
Watch list or whatever.
Watch list. That's gone. The whole under the radar thing, when you get put on that watch list for the nation's best running back, you're getting noticed.
Yeah. He's the leading returning rusher in the SEC. Like, he should be on there. No question about it. No question about it. I'm fascinated to see what the market share of touches is going to be with them, because I think he's true RB1. People are talking about how it's a three-headed monster, and they'll all three play, but he is RB1. This isn't like a group where they're all going to be close. RB2 and RB3 might be close in touches, but the divide between Jarquez and the other two, I think, will be substantial.
I agree. I don't think it's a three-headed monster. He's going to get the lion's share of the carries.
Yes.
He's undisputed as running back one, and the race and the fight for touches is the backup on the depth chart, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's between Damari and Jeremiah, and it's going to be a fierce battle because they're both really, really good at different things. So we'll see. Daryl, how can people check out everything that you've got going on?
Follow me on X, DAP6410, Instagram, Daryl Dapp, and then Wednesdays and Fridays with you, my friend, Zac Blackerby here on Locked On Auburn.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Please like the video. Please subscribe, and we'll see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.